Hello everybody, and welcome back to Certified Collectibles. This is another episode of First Appearances of the Week. This is Wednesday, May 4th, 2022. We'll be giving you all the first appearances in your comic shops today. Now this week we have a pretty good lineup for you guys. 13 titles on all to go through, 5 first appearances, 8 honorable mentions. Definitely some good books in there to add to your collection, so let's go ahead and get started for the first appearances of the week ending May 6, 2022. First up from DC Comics, Batman Beyond Neo Year Number 2. This features the first team appearance of Gestalt, 3 villains of Batman Beyond. Dominic Lumos is a new villain introduced in the series, and he may be part of the Gestalt. Now, this is not one of the tentpole Batman series. This is Batman Beyond, the tentpole series, of course, being the Batman standalone series and Detective Comics. And this is the first team appearance of these characters, not necessarily the first appearance of these characters in themselves. So this is one we do think you have some time on. Put this one here on your B-list for now. Next up from DC Comics, Batman Killing Time Number 3. This features the first full appearance of the Help, a character reminiscent of when Alfred became a villain named the Outsider in Detective Comics number 356 back in 1966. Now once again, this is a Batman title, but is not one of the Batman tentpole series. This does feature the first appearance of the Help, and we have heard some buzz about this particular character. So this is one you may want to spec on, but also we do think you have some time on this one. If you can pick it up, do so. Otherwise, put this one here on your B-list. Next up from Marvel Comics, Avengers Forever number 5. This features the first team appearance and death of the Man-Thing Avengers. This also features the introduction of Doom the Living Planet. Now this is one that we do think you should probably pick up for your collection. It's a little bit more of a speculative bet, but this is the first team appearance and the death of the Man-Thing Avengers. That may be a big deal. It all depends on what Disney decides to do with this particular team. But this also introduces Doom the Living Planet, and Doom becoming a big part of the MCU here in the near future. This is one we do think is worth specking on. Pick this one here up if you can. Next up from Marvel Comics, Spider-Man 2099 Exodus Alpha number 1. This features the first team appearance of a new Cabal. There's also the possible first cameos of new 2099 versions of the Winter Soldier, Loki, and X-Men. Once again, this is one we do think you should probably pick up, especially if these cameos are in this particular issue. So you may want to do a little bit more research on this before you grab it. But we always say this with Marvel titles, picking up these first appearances or first cameos are definitely worth the cover price. $3 or $4, you might be sitting on the winner. Pick this one here up if you can. If you can't, put this on your B-list. And finally from IDW, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 128. This features the first full appearance of Venus. This also features the first team appearance of deadly new villains, Frankenstein Turtles, seen in cameo at the end of issue number 127. Now, we always say this with these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle titles. Anytime there's a first appearance in these books, pick these up. These are definitely worth owning for the cover price. Huge collector base out there, huge fan base. And this features the first full appearance of Venus. And there's also these Frankenstein Turtles in this particular issue. This one here is worth owning for the cover price. Pick this one up if you can. And now for the honorable mentions. From Image Comics, Twig number 1. This is a 5-issue series inspired by Jeff Smith's Bone and the films Labyrinth and Dark Crystal. Now, based on the art for this particular series and the storyline, we do think this has high potential to be picked up an option for a small screen, big screen project. Image Comics has had a lot of their titles picked up for these projects. So this is one we do think is worth specking on, and the fact that it is somewhat reminiscent of the Labyrinth and Dark Crystal style. You know, there's a big retro fan base out there. So this one here we do think is probably worth picking up the spec on. Grab this one if you can. If you can't, put it on your B-list, but definitely keep an eye on this one. Next up from Aftershock Comics, Dogs of London number 1. 2 former gang members are stalked by their past when they ran with the dogs in the London underworld. Now this once again sounds like it can lend itself very well to a TV series, streaming series, or a feature film. And Aftershock Comics has had some of their titles picked up for these projects. So this one here is going to be a speculative bet if you choose to pick this one up. But we do think this one here has promise. So grab this one here if you can. If you can't, put it in your B-list, but definitely keep an eye on this one. Next up from Vault Comics, Quest Aside number 1. A tavern straight out of sword and sorcery stories faces being shut down unless the owner can find a way to keep it open. Now this one here lends itself very well to the sword and sorcery fan base, but this is a very specific subject matter, very specific storyline. You know, it does have some potential to be picked up for a streaming series or TV show feature film, but Vault Comics hasn't had a lot of their titles picked up for these projects, and this, like I said, is very niche. So this one here is definitely a speculative bet if you choose to pick it up. You can put this one here on your B-list for now, but keep an eye on it. Next up from Top Cow Comics, Metal Society number 1. This is a story about a future where evolved robots resurrect humans for manual labor, but eventually face opposition from a fearless human fighter and a frustrated, displaced robot. Now this one here does sound like it could lend itself very well to a small screen or big screen project, and Top Cow has released some important books over the years. So this one here we do think is worth picking up the spec on. Grab this one here for your collection. If you can't, put this one on your B-list, but definitely keep an eye on this one. Next up from DC Comics, Flashpoint Beyond number 1. In this issue, Thomas Wayne is in the role of Batman. Now this one here we do think is worth picking up for your collection. These Flashpoint Beyond titles are very popular with collectors, and this one here features Thomas Wayne in the role of Batman. This one here we do think is worth picking up for your collection. Go ahead and grab this one. Next up from DC Comics, Nubia Coronation Special number 1. This features the origin of Nubia. Now, it really depends on what DC does with this title series, or what they do with this particular character. If they push this character into other story arcs, other title series, or they bring this character to the small screen or big screen, this will be more important. But right now, the origin of Nubia, in our particular opinion, may not be all that important. Like I said, really depends on what DC does with this character. So you can put this one here on your B-list for now. Next up from DC Comics, Task Force Z number 7. In this issue, a new Task Force Z roster is introduced. Salmon Grundy, Victor Zaz, Madame Crow, and Copperhead. Now, this is one we also think you probably put on your B-list for now. This is just introducing a new roster for Task Force Z. Task Force Z, the title series, isn't necessarily one of DC's most popular or most highly collected, so this is definitely a B-list item. Keep an eye on it, but we think you have some time on this one. And finally, from Marvel Comics, Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi number 1. This features the origin of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, this is one we do think you should pick up. Any of these first appearances or origin stories in Marvel titles, and this is a Star Wars title, are definitely worth picking up and adding to your collection. You know, Marvel and Disney are still churning out these Star Wars films, and whenever they introduce an origin story like this so late in the game for a well-known character, there's often material in there that is pulled for any new projects. So some of the material for this particular origin story may be pulled into a streaming series featured from a TV show. So this one here we do think is definitely worth picking up. So there you have the 13 titles that we have for you guys this week. 5 first appearances, 8 honorable mentions, definitely some good books in there to add to your collection. Please feel free to drop some comments in the comment section below. Thumbs up if you like this video, and as always, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thank you for joining us here at Certified Collectibles, and we'll see you again next time.